Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of SpongeBob Now. Today, I will be talking about boating buddies and the Krabby Chronicle. First, I'm going to talk about boating buddies. Enjoy. In the beginning of the episode, SpongeBob is brushing Gary when he suddenly hears a strange noise. He goes outside to investigate, only to find out that it is just Squidward breathing. Squidward then tells SpongeBob that he will pay him $5 if he gives him peace and quiet for the rest of the day. However, Squidward already gave SpongeBob $5 to leave him alone yesterday. He gets annoyed, so Squidward begins walking away. He then finds out that SpongeBob is following him, so he starts running and he jumps onto his boat. However, he cannot find the keys and then SpongeBob arrives at Squidward's boat. Squidward then becomes furious, only to find out that SpongeBob wanted to give him his keys. Squidward drives away and literally drives through a stop sign by accident. He gets pulled over by a policeman, telling him that he needs to go to boating school to get his boating record clean. After that, the scene changes to Squidward walking up to Mrs. Puff's boating school, and once he opens the door, he sees SpongeBob and then starts to cry. During class, Squidward is forced to sit next to SpongeBob. Then Mrs. Puff asks Squidward why he is enrolled in boating school, so he tells everyone in the class while SpongeBob heavily breathes during this, annoying Squidward. After, Mrs. Puff tells SpongeBob to illustrate his side of the story, but SpongeBob just draws a picture with him and Squidward saying, "SpongeBob and Squidward, best boating buddies forever," on the chalkboard, much to the confusion of the students and to Squidward's annoyance. Later, during lunchtime, Squidward tries to avoid SpongeBob. He then decides to eat in the bathroom, but he sees SpongeBob's feet. Furious, Squidward angrily throws his sandwich on the floor, bangs the door and yells at SpongeBob, but when it opens, it is revealed to not be SpongeBob, but rather, a tough guy. Squidward awkwardly freaks out that he thought it was SpongeBob and gets beaten up, off-screen. He arrives back in class with SpongeBob, and Mrs. Puff tells him that he has to drive with SpongeBob for a test. So, they get inside a boat and SpongeBob is the driver. However, he drives out of control and crashes into a research lab. There, he, Squidward, and Mrs. Puff shrink and get washed down the drain. SpongeBob and Mrs. Puff end up in a water fountain back at Mrs. Puff's boating school, while Squidward ends up in the bathroom and gets beaten up again. The scene changes to everyone back in class. Mrs. Puff explains that everyone is going to do a test. But when SpongeBob tries to help him, an angry Squidward snaps at him exclaiming that they are not boating buddies, and he never wants help from him ever again. SpongeBob's feelings are hurt. However, Squidward cannot do the test because he cannot pick up the pencil since it is all bandaged up, so he asks for SpongeBob's help. When the sponge reminds him of what he said, Squidward denies it, only for his voice to have been recorded by another student. Finally, when Squidward admits that he and SpongeBob are boating buddies, and stated he said that before they became boating buddies, and SpongeBob cheers. But time runs out and Squidward asks Mrs. Puff what to do. She then says that he needs to come back the next week to retake the test. Squidward finds out that SpongeBob also failed the test, and he has to come back the next week too, causing Squidward to scream, ending the episode. Next, I'm going to talk about the Krabby Chronicle. Enjoy. At the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs finds out that there have been no new customers since he put a microscopic Krusty Krab ad in the Bikini Bottom Examiner newspaper. He goes out and finds out people are buying a different newspaper called the Bottom Feeder. A buyer informs Mr. Krabs that the Examiner is not interesting, and he also learns that not all of the stories in the newspaper are entirely truthful. Mr. Krabs looks at the newspaper and finds out that they charge 25 cents per word, much to his delight. Due to this, Mr. Krabs decides to open his own newspaper business. The next day, SpongeBob finds out that Mr. Krabs has given him new responsibilities, being the lead reporter for the Krabby Chronicle, and he is then given a badge and a camera. After finding no interesting stories, though there are many newsworthy stories although bad, like a thief robbing a bank, 2 muscular fishes smashing a car, and a giant monster coming out of the sewers, SpongeBob finds Patrick waiting for the bus. Deciding that this common event would make a juicy story, SpongeBob takes a picture of the scene, but Patrick insists that he is only watching the pole so that the next time it moves, he will be there to see it. SpongeBob still decides to do a story about it. At the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs is expecting huge profits for the Krabby Chronicle, only for Squidward to tell him nobody is buying the paper as the stories are too boring. Mr. Krabs is confused at first, but as soon as he looks at the Krabby Chronicle and sees what passes for news with SpongeBob, he's not at all surprised. Upset by this nonsense, he tells SpongeBob that his stories are not good enough, as nobody would be caught dead reading about such trivial things. He then turns the story of Patrick watching a pole into Patrick marrying a pole. SpongeBob says that it's lying. Mr. Krabs tells SpongeBob that it is not lying, it is instead giving the people something to laugh about. After this, SpongeBob writes several lies act of slander about people, which leads to Mrs. Puff losing her reputation as a good boating teacher, Larry being kicked out of the gym, the Chum Bucket being shut down by Health Inspector Yellowtail Andy, and Sandy's science trophies being confiscated by the Neptunian Science Committee. Realizing that trying to write stories isn't worth hurting people's feelings, SpongeBob tries to convince Mr. Krabs to stop, but Mr. Krabs does not listen and threatens to take his spatula away if he doesn't follow orders. That night, Mr. Krabs tells him to give him the wildest story ever and he spends the entire night fabricating one. The next day, Mr. Krabs is shocked to discover an angry mob, led by Martha, in his restaurant. It turns out SpongeBob wrote a story about Mr. Krabs overworking him and revealing that he's the mastermind behind all the lies he forced him to write about, ruining people's lives in response, including Sandy, Plankton, Mrs. Puff, and Larry, as the Krabby Chronicle becomes exposed. Furious at their reputations being ruined and what Mr. Krabs put SpongeBob through, the angry mob decides to take their money back. Mr. Krabs breaks down crying in the kitchen, missing his money so much that he is not even upset with SpongeBob for exposing his deceit. Krabs pulls $1 out of his pocket, wondering how he will make more. He suddenly gets the idea to use the printer to print money, act of counterfeiting. He tells SpongeBob to get some scissors so he can start using his imagination with the printer. The episode ends with Patrick arriving with the pole, having married it for real after seeing the news, and orders a Krabby Patty for both of them as SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs stare at him in the pole in surprise. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos. Goodbye everyone.